Welcome back. We are going to continue our discussion of marine pollution. We're going to move on from petroleum and talk about some other forms of marine pollution. Synthetic organic compounds and heavy metals. These are two other common pollutants. And so let's start with those synthetic organic compounds. These are similar to some of our organic compounds that are naturally occurring, but they don't biodegrade in the same way a natural substance would. So these chemicals are found in pesticides, flame retardants, industrial solvents. We also have heavy metals, another pollutant. And you might remember these from the periodic table. Some of them are mercury, lead, arsenic. And these can come from landfills and from industrial waste that is not disposed of properly. So, what are the effects? Well, both of these will interrupt those natural biological functions, even if they're present in small quantities. And so they can cause illness in organisms and birth defects even in humans. Okay, so how are these chemicals actually coming into contact and being absorbed by marine organisms? Well, it's through something called bioaccumulation. And this is when an organism absorbs and concentrates a toxin that might be present in the water or the food it's eating. So it can occur just from that toxin being present in the water, because that organism is in contact with that water. It can also occur when that organism is consuming another organism that might have that toxin present. So bioaccumulation refers to one organism and how a toxin affects one organism. Biomagnification is a concentration of those toxins as you go up trophic levels, as you go up the food chain. So those lower trophic levels, maybe something like zooplankton, they might have a low concentration of toxins, but some organism at the top of the food chain, say an apex predator like a shark, might have higher concentrations because of this biomagnification. So let's take a look at a chart from your textbook to see how this works. Okay, so this is showing organisms of various trophic levels. At the bottom we have lower trophic levels, and at the top we have higher trophic levels. And you can see at the bottom you have DDT, which is a toxin that is present in pesticides in pretty low concentration in that water. So 0.0000003 parts per million. Not very much. But as that zooplankton starts to consume that water, or is just present in that water, it starts to bioaccumulate that in its tissues. When a fish consumes that zooplankton, it is going to absorb all that DDT that was present in the zooplankton, and it is going to concentrate it in its tissues. So as this goes on up the food chain, you can see that the parts per million of this toxin is increasing. So once you get to the top predator, in this case a pelican, it is present at 25 parts per million, which would be toxic to this bird. Now note that this all started from water that had very little actual DDT in it. But as you move up the food chain, up trophic levels, you see a higher concentration to the point that it's toxic. So the question is, where do humans fit into this whole food chain? Well, most of us are going to be right up here at the top, and we'd be considered apex predators. So that puts us in a little bit of a vulnerable position when it comes to toxins when we're eating seafood. So especially if you're pregnant or breastfeeding, you have to be a little bit mindful about how much and which seafood you are consuming. So I included this chart in here. Oh, here it is. From the FDA that lays out what seafood is safe to eat and when. And the good news is that most of the seafood falls into this category for 2 or 3 servings a week. And so this is actually guidance for pregnant or breastfeeding mothers, which is a more vulnerable population. So this will be safe to use for the rest of us as well. Okay, the last form of marine pollution is something that we might not think of as a pollutant, something we use every day, which is plastic. And this is becoming more and more harmful as more of it accumulates in the ocean. And so I'm going to wrap up my lecture here and let you watch the third-party video on plastics in the ocean. But I want to thank you for watching. Wherever you are, have a good day or good night.